मामूल भाई क्या मामूल पानी आके बस ना Ne çeşit var ya. Ulan bir kere bu ya. Sakral. Bunun sulan. Bunun için sulan işte. Yok yok.
Boya Suzan uylanish kerak faqat.
Lazım mı olsa?
Ulandı o'sha, boshqasi kerak bo'ldi. Kerak emas boshqa.
Bilemezsin. Yani koştuğunda tekrar kameramı koşuyor. Doğru bir saat doğru burası nasıl? Hani böyle gidip ama.
Да, потому что не так говорить. Colleagues, I suggest we start. Otherwise, we wouldn't manage to. There is one announcement before we start.
Hurmatli forum ishtirokchilari, ushbu sessiyadan so'ng sizlarni kechki ovqatga taklif etamiz. Tashqarida sizlarni avtobus kutib turadi. Rahmat. Dear guests, we invite you to dinner after this session. A bus will wait for you outside. Thank you.
We will be leaving 10 to 7. So this one and the round table. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. I suggest we start. If I get everyone seated, please. Colleagues, warm welcome. I'm Munir Mohammadzadeh, UNICEF representative in Uzbekistan, and I'm privileged to moderate this session, which has a long name. It stands for Human Capital Accumulation and Inclusive Growth: How to Better Design Skills Programs, including IT. But I must say, usually in the show business, the most important is kept at the end. And at the opening, we have heard many panelists and speakers at the opening talking about importance of the human capital development. And I think this is the session where we will unpack what do we mean by human capital development and why it is important in alleviating poverty, but also elsewhere. So the key topic will cover also intergenerational poverty, multidimensional poverty, preventive policies for poor growth, equal opportunities for everyone, education qualities, school attendance, training centers, IT sector employment capacity, health insurance system, so you just name. So panelists have a hard task to cover the subject in a very limited timeline. But what I wanted to just set the discussion and the scene to highlight that Uzbekistan's demographic structure, as it was mentioned this morning by the advisor to the president, is almost 60% of the population in Uzbekistan are children and young people. So this actually necessitates investments in human capital development. And it is forecasted also that by 2030, the share of working age population will reach its all-time maximum, offering the country unprecedented amount of human resources. And this is definitely a potential demographic development. So how these resources will be equipped with necessary skills, this is the biggest challenge. And this is what we are going to discuss today. And of course, when we talk about human capital development, in addition to investment to young people, children, and workforce, we of course talk about also a workforce that works for human capital development or social sectors. And in that sense, also access to social protection, healthcare, and education are key enablers in developing human capital, and also essential in breaking the chain of intergenerational poverty. Education and skills, this would be the primary focus of the discussion, can mean the difference between unemployment and employment, between poverty and prosperity, between despair and hope. And poverty, as it was already mentioned, is a multidimensional phenomenon defined by deprivations in quality nutrition, sanitation, education, health, social protection, etc. So today we have a number of panelists who would unpack those areas with us and talk about importance of the human capital development. And it's my pleasure introduce our first speaker, Madame Olga Tulaeva, who is Regional Director of International Labour Organization covering Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And she will talk about job creation and social protection and what they mean for poverty alleviation. I think it is key to start with that broader outlook from you. Please, Madam Tulaeva.
Thank you very much. And indeed, the topic which we all have to cover is so huge that I'm sure we will speak of different aspects of the human capital development. Mine would be the perspective which is related to the ILO mandate, the statement of this. And I would like to refer first to very strong wording which was picked by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. When he spoke less than 10 days ago on the 17th of May under ECOSOC auspices about sustainable development goals, and he decided to remind us that we speak of the fact about saving the SDGs. And this is more important than ever due to the obvious fact that the world is going through those human crises that we are currently experiencing. And this leads us to adverse impact on the movement towards SDGs. So we all together have to work now on reversing the reverse process. In 2020 alone, the pandemic pushed out into poverty about 100 million people in 1 year. And the forecast for year 2022 for the current year is that extreme poverty will find between 657 to 676 million people. And again, this rather dramatic global background is not today from the very beginning of the outset of this day that Uzbekistan has a very ambitious goal to go down in poverty 2 times by year 2026. The ILO has a very strong opinion on how you get people out of poverty. Well, they have worked out so they have given chance for this people. And that is part of what the ILO is doing together with the tripartite in Uzbekistan by this time governments, insurers, and we are actively supporting them in employment activities, aid, drafting employment strategy, which is now going into both partners from the and it's not just be a useful voice about it. We are all making a commitment to take it to the point of the demonstration throughout the whole country, so it does not just stay in paper as a document by everyone. When we talk about this work it is a lot about benefiting of labor market institutions. And the question is anticipation and what would be needed, what would be in demand at the labor market in a certain perspective. What's much more than $1 million. It's really a crucial thing, and the one who will find the way to do correct modeling of anticipation will be certainly a winner in global competition. There are those methodologies which allow to predict really accurately in a short-term perspective. And there is international experience on that. So in our work with the Ministry of Employment, the major partner here, we are very much prepared to engage in this as well. We did many important things together, and it was much said this morning about infrastructure and how it is linked to poverty and how important it is to build up infrastructure projects. In our language, it means public works funds, as it's labeled in Uzbekistan, or employment-intensive infrastructure programs, and also there are multiple practices. Uzbekistan is doing many right things, but those also could be further strengthened, and we are prepared to do it together with the ministry. Another important thing would be these short-term outcomes, outlook, which could help those beautiful multifunctional centers which now exist across the country to train people in those skills which really are needed and are in demand by national business. The background, the global background against which all this is developed is of course very worrying. And the part of this work, which Uzbekistan, as any other country, has to do, is collection and accurate analysis of labor market information, which became an issue from the very beginning of the pandemic crisis, because the ordinary ways of labor force surveys were disturbed in many places due to limitations imposed by the pandemic, and the ILO contributed an obligation to collect information as much as it goes and to compensate for its gaps through our analytical instruments. So up to date, till the end of last year, we issued the ILO monitor. All of them were related to coronavirus, and the purpose was to give as much information on what is going on and what we predict could happen, so that we enable our national partners, our member states, to build up their anti-crisis policy and to make informed decisions on that. This one, we had the 9th edition of the ILO monitor, and it was the first one where we do not have coronavirus in its cycle, because there are now new circumstances which rule development of labor markets. So it was just ILO monitor and the Board of Work. This for the first time was combining analysis of the recession and recovery with the new trends which we all can observe. And there is an issue of reports, obviously across the globe, which is in the first place focused on 3F, which are food, fuel, and finance. And this is concern for the whole world economy, which has to be reflected even by those countries which still are on the upward trend in their movement toward sustainable development. We see everywhere disruption of the supply chain. And of course, we all see the effects of the military conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and the sanctions imposed on Russia and counter adopted by the Russian Federation. So those fragile signs of recovery, which we would see by October, November of last year, regretfully now under a huge question mark. We see negative trends, and they are measured by the ILO. In the first quarter of 2022, if we compare to the last pre-crisis period, which is the end of 2019, the number of work hours in the global economy went down by 3.8%. 3.8 sounds not that dangerous, but if you translate it into jobs, then it is a lot, which is equivalent to 100 doesn't mean that they are going to go to 100. Some people are temporary jobs in temporary lockdown in some parts of the globe, less than what we usually provide. Underemployment growth, unemployment growth, and so does for income. And the relatively grateful is negative, apart from higher income countries in the rest of the world, it will continue, which is a very, very dangerous phenomenon. We were examining the groups which are suffering more than others, and these are women, female labor force in informal employment in the country with low and we have to say that most of the workers in the world, they did not come back to their income level which they had in pre-crisis period. So it is really a very unpleasant trend. For the first time in 40 years, there is a risk of stagflation. We are not talking of stagflation in 40 years, and now we see that it can return. So that's why we were going together with the government when the report will be an adopted document on making sure that all groups of the population for all different periods of their lives have sustainable income. It is so crucial. It is so crucial for sustaining growth, for human-centered recovery, the ILO, and the UN Global Accelerator for Just and Social Protection are advocating for. There is a number of policy measures which we are advising our member states to consider, and we count on Uzbekistan engaging in this consideration. And the last thing I have to mention is specific to Uzbekistan. We went through very different quarters together. The government of Switzerland, which happened to be at our side for supporting us alongside the government of the United States, the government of Germany and the European Union for a number of years combating child labor and forced labor in this country. The country which managed within such a short historical perspective to solve such a problem will be able to find the way out of the current recession, but that would not be that easy. And we are here to support our partners.
Thank you so much. I think ILO is the agency within the United Nations family that has a clear mandate and comparative advantage, but also normative role when it comes to employment and social protection. And I'm particularly grateful that you have mentioned all the specific target groups that we need to pay attention, because one of the key goals within sustainable development goal is leaving no one behind. And I think when we talked about employment and social protection related work, we need to understand that social protection shouldn't be seen only as a burden to the state to address the issue, but there are certain categories like children or vulnerable women or persons with disabilities for whom social protection is entitlement. And also social protection is something that we also jointly with World Bank frame as investment strategy rather than a burden. And we know that, as you mentioned, with COVID situation, if I talk about our target group, COVID pushed additional 845,000 children to fell into poverty in Uzbekistan. So this is global estimate. But now, as you rightly mentioned, with the impact of the war in Ukraine and sanctions, we need to be careful how this target groups would be further impacted and what needs to be done to make sure that we avoid situation where they will be further pushed into poverty or exclusion. And of course, in that sense, how much we invest in skills of those groups. And I know my colleague Rahel Rush is very passionate about this subject, about skill development, but also very passionate about gender as well. So, and for the skill development, of course, we're talking about a number of dimensions, starting from school readiness to foundational skills to transactional skills, digital skills, entrepreneurial skills. But also we know that, for example, 69% of young women aged 19 to 24 years of age in Uzbekistan are not in education, employment or training. Right, and this is in comparison to 33% of young men. So there are definitely gender gaps, one of the dimensions to look at, but there are many others. So we would be interested to hear from you, Rahel, what is your engagement and what are the priorities in vocational education and training, and how Switzerland is helping us. I didn't introduce your title. So Rahel Rush is Counselor and Head of International cooperation of the Embassy of Switzerland in Uzbekistan. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Munir and Olga. Dear colleagues, it's my pleasure to participate in this panel, even though saying German den letzten weißen Minuten, which means like the last one, everybody's tired, so I try to have my contribution as smart as possible. I just come from the last panel, which was talking about lessons learned, and then Charlotte were asking about also lessons learned, I mean failures, and then Martin said that investment skills, this is something that was not taken into consideration efficiently or sufficiently in the last years. So that's where our support comes in to the governmental reform, and I have the next slide for us. I thought now that all the morning about the importance of the private sector by development to have the decent work. So listening to all of these inspiring discussions, I had to rename my presentation. I thought like what we need for the product production and how we use sustainable development with jobs for people and people for jobs. And throughout, I would say jobs. And it's so important. So let me share with you what is the Switzerland approach. It's you right. My question. It's some of the Swiss flagship supports poverty reduction globally. We are working on in 35 countries and supporting the wage reforms, for vocational education and training. And maybe astonished that 70% of the young people in Switzerland choose the VET for their pathway. And at the same time, Switzerland ranks among the top spots in international competitiveness. Amongst all OECD countries, Switzerland has the highest proportion of young people able to quickly find employment in the labor market. And of labor market development. And who wonders that with these figures, the rate choice in Switzerland is very high acceptance. Amongst their parents, private sector, and public sector. So, what are the reasons for this success? I just highlight a few points. And was a key role in finding and advising and training programs. And a large part of the training takes place at the workplace. Actually, this is one of the key elements of successful reform. Then the next point, the partnership between public sector, private sector, and let's leads to more efficient use of resources. There is then a connection between the different systems, for instance, basic education to social services, and a balance between economic objectives, what the private sector aims focused on productivity and competitiveness, social objectives focused on private sector is involved in all aspects of the written, from planning to finance, implementation and evaluation. Around 40% of all companies in Switzerland who offer apprenticeship places because they see a clear benefit from it for themselves and for the wider economy. So it's not just a protection measure, it's an investment. For example, an apprentice takes on average 1 year in a company before the gains balances the cost of employment. Most apprentices actually stay them with the employers, which is another key benefit for the private sector. As the sector cost for finding and on the side of the find qualified labor. And what is important to say, the system has to be protected, which can be that means economic objectives, education objectives, and social objectives. And it was mentioned in the current crisis and in this highly unpredictable world and the dynamics, the flexibility in the system allows people to change. This we call it permeability. So lifelong learning and you can choose between different pathways. It's also important to emphasize that the new system puts a high value on life skills. And I think these are the soft skills we are also talking about here. And the importance of teamwork, problem solving approaches, of IT skills relevant to unified situation. And like this, the red before not only support the better technical experts, skilled experts, also contribute to more empowered members of society. At the heart of this system is the values of learning and the very strong focus on practical training. Besides theory and strong focus on learning at the workplace, there comes also the support for women at the workplace and I do conclude Uzbekistan to find very strong innovative ways on how we can improve and strengthen women economic empowerment and in the labor market. It is not easy, we are all aware because of constraints, often to stay at home. So also the last panel it was said that use more the IT digitalization because it allows also to participate from remote. So I think there and important role today also to be more innovative. And then what the next slide is. I have only 2 slides. So as said, Switzerland has a key element in its cooperation is the support to women. And why is that so? Because there is a correlation between the poverty and the skilled people. And this is really very interesting. And we have much more focus on strength that strengthen this hypothesis. What is also very important in our cooperation also with Uzbekistan is that the systems are very strongly embedded in the local economic and cultural context. So we need to find formats and solutions in those countries, especially the Ministry of Labor and Employment. So it's extremely important to allow a system rather than individual projects. On this, I have also taken away today's discussion much more need for having this kind of exchange and discussion the market stakeholder approach. So the bit it's otherwise we get lost in project approaches. As kind of short and complete here, what we also found out in our cooperation with many partner countries, it's so important that we include public sector, private sector, and that we bring that all together. And this I come to the last slide. What can Switzerland contribute to the region in Uzbekistan? First of all, we would like to contact in the region forum, and the government of Uzbekistan has asked to support the overall background I have just shared. So we think that we can offer expert advice and experience that this reform provides for inclusion of people with disabilities. And for having a specific focus on skills development for the women. And we think that if this process is owned and driven by the local public, private sector and social stakeholders, then we will see
Thank you so much. And I think you touched upon very critical point. First and foremost, thanks to the government and people of Switzerland for the contribution and investment in that area. You have mentioned right learning is something so important to the use at the system level. Soft skills particularly that you refer, this is what we are highlighting increasingly, that the outcome of the education and learning is not only academic performance, but also it is how you adapt, how you develop your critical thinking, how you solve problems. Very clear and linkages between skill development and poverty reduction. I think it's not hypothesis anymore, it's key fact that we need to take into account. Thank you. So next speaker we have is Zana Rakitsan, Program Leader for Human Development in South Asia at World Bank. She's joining us online. Zana, welcome. We meet with you. I know that a few days ago there was human development event and discussions held also in Kyrgyzstan. So we hear your perspectives in general, but also if you could tell us what were the key takeaways and recommendations in that event with the useful to know. Over to you.
Guys, manga accent kim? Yeah, guys, the accent. Well, the umingage.
Can we ask whoever is to mute their mic? Okay, Sudan, over to you.
Hi, colleagues. Can you see and hear me? There is a background noise there.
Others, the participants, please. Can we do it centrally from here? Thank you.
So let me ask again if you hear and see me, because the connection is not very good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Opportunity to participate in this forum, very important one. I have limited time and will try to be short, just to say that Uzbekistan is a dynamically developing country, and the strong human capital is key for productive and sustainable growth of the country. Uzbekistan has advantage in terms of young population. It has been already mentioned that it's growing, and the young population, for example, from 0 to 9, 1 million young people will appear in a labor market in the next decade. This advantage can turn to be a disadvantage if the country wouldn't equip the younger generation with proper skills and knowledge to adapt to demands for the dynamically changing labor market. Many of you probably know that the World Bank introduced the Human Capital Index recently, which is the attempt to link and measure the human capital and productivity, and how the generation in particular country will be productive if current situation. So score for Uzbekistan is 0.6. Which means the generation will lose 40% productivity as compared if they would have full education, health. And when we unpack the reasons for the score, which is, by the way, in terms of the compare with Central Asia average, is not bad, but it's lags behind OECD countries that Uzbekistan has aspiration to reach. So the major reason is quality of education, both at the or even at all levels, starting with primary level, the secondary level, and the higher education level. The student in Uzbekistan is supposed to complete 12 years of secondary education. But when to quality of education, then we see that actually what they learn is equal to years of education. The same is about enrollment in primary or preschool education, not primary, preschool education, and very low coverage of higher education. And we all know that investment in education pays back, and the higher is education attainment, the higher our future learnings. So I'm pleased to inform that the World Bank will support Uzbekistan in addressing these challenges, and already a number of project analytics are in place, but forward-looking World Bank will finance quality of secondary education, and will support Uzbekistan's participation in assessment of learning outcomes, PISA and TIMSS, first time participate. And I would like to commend Uzbekistan for this bold and very important action to actually measure, to know what are the how Uzbekistan compares with other countries and what are the major challenges that needs to be addressed. And the focus of that project will be first of all on teacher training. Our analytics across the world shows that the teacher quality is the main determinant for quality of education. And this needs to be done not only in terms of the knowledge on subject, also encourage students to think creatively, to think on a standard way, to be in a team spirit, to deliver as a team, etc. So, we also will support to improve the coverage, to enlarge the coverage of higher education enrollment, which is also the technical skills at large extent are being nurtured and developed at higher education. And despite the very big development on that side, Uzbekistan still lags behind the neighbor countries like Kazakhstan and also OECD countries in terms of the enrollment in higher education. It's important. Well, the Human Capital Index shows the linkage between Uzbekistan needs healthy workforce to be productive and to ensure sustainable growth, and modernization of and health will be very important, so that additional every year additional number of people fall under the poverty because of catastrophic health expenditure. People need to sell their assets to be able to cover their expenses for health. 60% of the health expenditure still come out of pocket in Uzbekistan. Similarly, social protection, many people are not included in the system of social assistance, and the support actions to improve target of households to reduce exclusion errors, most importantly. So this much, I will. I want to wish success to Uzbekistan, and I'm quite sure that the country will be able to tackle those issues. Lifelong learning and reskilling was mentioned. This is also very important, but this forum is the evidence that country is very determined and committed to improve and advance human capital accumulation. Thank you for attention, and with your permission, if there would be questions, I will pick up them later and
Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan. And thank you for raising all the key elements of what we have discussed, but also using this opportunity I was mentioning this morning to your regional director, the level of partnership we enjoy and effective partnership we enjoy between the World Bank and United Nations family in Pakistan is quite unique. So we are grateful for that in all in preschool, school education, but also in social protection and many other areas. And I think it was a music to our ears, both I think for UNICEF, ILO, WHO to hear that healthy and educated workforce, which is well protected socially, is the key.
That's for sure. I was going to mention that just being in Rush, I missed to mention, but it's exceptional and extraordinary cooperation, and whatever I mentioned as a World Bank intervention, hand in hand with our development partners intervention, and this is also very unique advantage in Uzbekistan. Thank you for bringing that point.
So we have 3 more interventions, and we have got, actually, according to the agenda, we got only 10 minutes, but I think we can extend it to 20 minutes max. So I will request the remaining panelists to adjust slightly as much as possible. But now I think we have one of the most important interventions in the sense that Mr. Muezzina, who is the Minister of Employment and Labor Relations of the Republic of Uzbekistan, will give us all the details of policy of Uzbekistan in these areas and what are the challenges ahead. But also, most importantly, if you can tell us what are the labor market trends in Uzbekistan and what kind of skills you're expecting. Yesterday, we had the last day in the school, and we were wishing young people to be successful, to be employed, to get educated. But what does it mean to be successful in labor market in the context of Uzbekistan and beyond?
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'll try to be short as much as possible to keep many of my slides. First of all, welcome all participants to the meeting. Thank you for coming the end of the day. Uzbekistan considers human capital development as one of the crucial points of our transaction. President Uzbekistan, always pushing the importance of human capital in our transaction strategy. As practice show why people is who are employed because mostly very lack of skills. But our growing economy needs skills, demanding skills, economy skills, working skills, investment skills, and also there is a strong correlation between the level of skills and set of business startup and business. And in this respect, skill development is an important part of human development. We have a line power transaction, human capital, and skill development. The lines for us. I dare say Uzbekistan has a significant progress in skill development. Why? Because we have strong political will. Over the last 2 years, we have at least 5 decrees of presidents concerning skill development. For the last 2 years. Secondly, we have significant investment in human capital. We have a big money from state budget to our employment fund, thanks to our data minister, Mr. Kuchkarov, who is funding our economic complex, thanks to Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister of the President of Social Sector, who is giving us money. He's here also, the job President of King. And thirdly, we have a full instruments how to do it on the field, how to involve people, unemployed people, especially people that deal with young people, train development, how to put, roughly speaking, how to put skills in my mind. Right. So the main trends of labor market this year, can you see that Uzbekistan still has a large window of demographic opportunities. So we have a young population. The labor force Uzbekistan accounts for more than 90 million people, 78% of whom economically active population. Very high figure. So, on the other hand, it gives us strong challenges. Challenges of unemployment, especially women and young employment is higher than average unemployment. Challenges of poverty and challenges of illegal labor migration. So, pay attention to the figure. Largest share of second education among economically inactive people compared to economic active people. So it means we need more proactive, pro-aggressive, I guess, like skill development program among unemployed people to make it more active on the market. Next slide. Obviously, now ministry is working actively. Next slide, please. Actively developing those professional skills and competence demand in the labor market. You can see currently we have more training on more 50 professions in demand in the labor market. You can see figures, and it's provided by our 16 monocenters schema command, 16 vocational centers at the district level, and 146 Masala-based vocational training plan under our ministry. Training in these institutions is organized on the basis of short courses lasting from 1 to 6 months. So our main difference from official secondary education institutions. Our course is called usually short time. So the main reason of our course is to secure employment as quickly as possible. Not only for this employment, but also as self-employed person or start their own business. Because graduate of our centers not also send to vacancies, but also have a right to have subsidies up to $700 each for buying labor instruments and many technologies to be self-employed or to be established their own intervention activity. Look how growing this number of employed people trained, how many training is growing year by year, and in profession, with increased profession, so year by year we include more and more professions every year, try to meet the requirements of the government. So the next slide is our one centers. It's unique experience of Uzbekistan, I can say bravely, because not all covering also professional education for the profession, but also at least 5 foreign languages for the people who is going to learn innovation, entrepreneurship, skill training, assessment of professional professional quality, professional quality, and keep supporting the employment inside Uzbekistan and supporting employment outside country as organized organization. So we have monocenters in each region. Today we have a station in and yesterday, tomorrow, sorry, we have a chance to visit our monocenters after lunch. I will explain in more detail what we're doing there. Okay. And this year we want to go to district level because we have monocenters in the center of regions. Now we want to go more deep in the district level. This year we opened new branches of monocenters in the 28 districts of the Republic, and the next year in 35 districts. And we need also support of our donors, partners, new partners, with also World Bank, and all our partners to do it together. And also we have developed unique experience. We want to increase the number of training points in Mahallas to 1,000. So people usually, we have people who is not going to work outside their community Mahallas. We want to be close to home, even at home. We want to be employed at home, mostly women, mostly little people with disabilities. They ask us to create opportunity for them to work at home. So based on this, we want to create professional training points inside Mahallas, close to their home. Next slide. We have in our experience of training centers in our one is vocational training centers that are jointly with the Korean International Cooperation Agency called COICA in Tashkent, Samarkand, Shahrazad, and Tegana. Now we want to actually one more in Urgench. It's more deep professional training, goes to up to 8 to 10 months, from each 2 months at least as training on the enterprises. And we also have planned quite open to Center of Excellence for TVET teachers and a modern education center, assessment center in Tashkent. So we can have the same project with Switzerland. And next slide. Last year we have 115,000 unemployed people trained in our school training center, free of charge. All the money was covered by our employment fund, and from each amount, 75% given. It was not before. You see, it was possible. Now more and more women is going active and want to increase the professional skills in those development market. It's very important factor for Uzbekistan now. If you look, 62% of people after graduating to find a job. It's not hard. It's not. It's not high, I understand, but it's open figures. It's true figures. We want to increase up to 80, maybe more 80%, and try to make more instruments, more subsidies to make people more active on a level market, not going to find manufacturers but start the entrepreneurship activity and self-employment activity. So if you can see the figure, 9,000 people started their own businesses and 16,000 started their self-employment activity after graduating from our training. I'm trying to do it fast, I'm talking so fast, please interrupt me in that situation. So in 2020, Uzbekistan became a member of the international movement. It's very important for us. International is a portion of professional training. It's a big movement. Also, if you visit our championships of all fields, if you can see the eyes of young people how they live with profession, how they live with this. You can see how human capital is important for our people. We can see. So now we about 200 experts from Uzbekistan have been trained and certified according to world standards in 14 competencies, which are in the global market, such as construction, hotel administration, mobile robotics, higher dressing, welding technology, fashion technology, and others, which employ up to 30% of people employed in the formal sector of our economy. This is an aim to establish a world-skilled expert community in Uzbekistan, but we wanted to make it more broader. We want to thousand people involved in this movement. We want them to live this. We want them to constantly increase their professional skills and make it more effective in Uzbekistan. So, next slide, please. The next our experience, we started to invite foreign teachers and foreign specialists in our. So what they are doing? First of all, train our teachers. Secondly, look through our curriculum, improve it. Thirdly, to make masterclass for women and young people, because if unemployed people see that foreigners who is teaching them, it's raising their interest in this profession. And public, it's new one. Many of our business and especially SMEs very interested in this profession, foreign professionals, making them advice, consulting them, including the activity. And now we have about 30 foreign teachers from Turkey, Germany, Japan, and Korea, but we want to increase it up to and invite more than 200 more teachers in Uzbekistan. So about 10 or 15 to each region. And maybe next year, we will increase up to 1,000. So 5 to 4 in each district in Uzbekistan. It would be great. But of course, it will take a great amount of money. So next slide. Special attention for training people with disabilities. It's a big problem for us and a big direction for us for many years. To be honest, we didn't pay big attention to that. Not only for people with disabilities, even young people. You can see in monocentric how we interested in that. We provide them free of charge professional training, so many professions, and we increase more and more problems for us to try to solve it. And of course, I think we should move in that direction. So, what else? I think I would finish here, not to take much of your time because I have many slides to come, but 10 minutes. For yes, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Valentino. Very useful. I think it would be great if presentation can be shared with the participants, because I think I've got many important numbers and figures and information that would be useful for us. I would like also to thank for your personal, but also your leadership in coordinating skill development related engagement, because we have many actors engaged, and it is very important that you as a government set the tone and define what are the needs. And I think what is happening, what I have seen today in Mono Center, but earlier, I think it deserves to be documented and maybe at some point evaluated. What is the impact? Because although you said 63% is not that high, but to me it is still quite significant. So it would be good to have to evaluate it and see what is the level of impact and also how it can be further expanded. And importantly, you mentioned about window of opportunity. Unfortunately, slowly, but certainly it is fading away. So the time is to act now, and I think this is again what I wanted to reiterate, that we need to see how we can complement and help Uzbekistan in that journey. So you also mentioned about IT skills. We talked about digital skills a number of times. So I have two more speakers who will particularly cover this subject. So I have Yura Kabulova. She is cluster lead on inclusive growth in UNDP. And she will tell us more about digital skills and UNDP engagement in this area. It is particularly important because I think COVID-19 gave us clear kind of experience that digital skills are key for all the sectors and for all the areas. So it would be useful to hear you, and perhaps we don't pause after your intervention. We are new to complement and tell us about what is the economic thinking behind digital skills and how its reduction, and what could be some practical directions to build digital human capital. Please, the floor is yours, and then we pass it to you. And if you can shorten it a bit, please.
For me, the biggest contribution deeper, go a little bit more into the digital skills. Today in the session, for instance, in the time of COVID, more than digital capabilities, and business digitalization
outsourcing. And of course, I'm not talking about digital
Thank you. Okay, let's go. Yes, and Dr. Yusuf, can also touch upon the issue of digital divide. I think this is what we have witnessed during the COVID time. So we talked about digitalization, which is not the purpose in itself, right? The digitalization should serve the ultimate outcomes in whatever we do. But also when we talk about digital skills, we realize that in the context of Uzbekistan as well, there are quite many young people who don't know even how to use basic equipment, or they don't have advanced skills, or often they don't use internet on a regular basis, because sometimes also internet been something dangerous for new generation in some contexts, especially for young girls. So if you can cover that part as well, it would be useful. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. When I was looking into especially how the travelers and just all around training programs in Switzerland, I was imagining like how much more capable I should have been if I was born in Switzerland. And but question that is a good pearl. Morning, I was also qualified by that question. When we don't have the abundance of resources, most would be the two most important skills that I would personally acquire. If I have a choice, okay, then it will be a language and computer language. Why is that? Because language allows me to communicate with people and leverage people. And computer language allows me to leverage machines. I will be able to talk to machines because people and machines are probably the two sources that exist on this planet. Maybe there are more in the later years, but so far this is a lot. And why we're talking about digital skills at the conference of poverty. So here's some theory behind this. We'd like to share with you. I'm trying to use human language to persuade you that we should rather language using computer language to leverage machines. So our starting point is poverty. And so that has been generating data, analyzing carefully, generating the evidence, and we see that around the world, most powerful to reduce poverty is in fact inclusive growth. That means to have inclusive growth, you need to have a growth components, growth into inclusive, and economic theory told us what determines GDP growth. A very important component of that is technology. Technology determines human productivity. And if you look back in time, with a very wide horizon, then you will see that for thousands of years, actually, languages started to come in life almost at the same time that Homo sapiens started from this country. And human productivity only started to boom when we started seeing industrial revolution in the end of 1700s. And that's the time that we start to traditions, power, and what you see around the world, every industrial revolution, the countries that created this way actually also have great returns. These industrial revolution made them the most developed countries in the world. First the UK, then follows the by US, and those who follow very closely, right in the same way. Also, they get very followed. For example, the change period of Japan, and around the same time, 1871 Germany. They're also the first followers, and they also follow. So that when we see this pattern of this, when we have industrial revolution, you either create or follow it, or that you fall behind. And now we're in the industrial revolution, which is talking to the machines. So this is the reason why that like we should start considering digitalization as part of the GDP growth strategy. And all of that, I will also want to mention that like if you Google right now that the largest companies with the largest market cap in the world, actually 4 out of 5 are digital technology. first. One of the reasons digitalization really represents the forefront of human productivity right now. So that's the direct impact. And this is the more of the medical part. What we all want is practical. To be practical, I mean, it means is that we need to achieve a goal with limited resources. Taking into account that's not the problem. And I would summarize. This is a function that's so one is geography, the other one is technical. Like just like small children, they have a certain power to learn language. This is the same for digital technology. And there was no, like you can imagine like how many you have taught your parents on how to use phones, how to use computers. And this is true that we need to make this strategy as early as possible in the life to teach them when it's the most efficient period. And apart from that, in terms of geography, so it actually explains why it has to be the country, why Uzbekistan has to be involved into the most developed country. For example, in the age of sale, the age of discovery, is all based on bullshit education. And we need to support. So that's part of later on, it's very simple but very powerful technology contains sheets by boats overseas that make the current global commercial globalization. Again, so we would like to find again. However, when we have internet, it overrides the geographical barriers. And this has implications to our economy. And I want to explain this by the sectors. And let me make the most strategic point first. It's the services sector. When we consider services sector, it completely overrides the geographical barriers. If we think about export digital services, what you need is a set of skills, digital skills, where you can really export it without considering the troublesome logistics infrastructure. And that's the reason why, like, I see a lot of potential in this area. And within this point, that we can also think about different levels of services. We can be very high tech for very skilled people, but covering the second point on inclusiveness gap. But this is another example where it really leverages very accessible digital skills to business households. It's not very high tech. People with okay and then we start to compete in the global market where the wages is already very high. I believe here we have the opportunity in Uzbekistan that we can find for a wage that's good enough to leave the population here out of poverty while still remaining competitive. Where, for example, in the US, the programmers are so spoiled with their very high returns. Those data scientists who are making $100 million a year at a very young age. So we do have that along those lines. And very lastly, about agriculture and industry. Like our my colleague from the World Bank, is the agricultural team. They have a series of studies on the comparative advantage within agricultural sector. And they found that the horticulture is very competitive in this region. And what has been left to solve is how do you promote these products? We can grow the very high quality nuts, very high quality foods. And how do you monetize? And the solution, part of the solution will be to connect to the global e-commerce platforms. Or that we promote these online so that we can fight for much better terms of trade. To avoid the cases where I've heard from my own study that some firms they create they build the products and they has to be labeled as making someone else. So we can avoid that by better access to market. I think this is the set of strategies for you to.
Very interesting and also educating to listen to you. I hate interrupting anyone, especially if you're a doctor, but unfortunately, we went beyond allocated time to us, although we started half an hour late and it wasn't our fault. But there's a big group of people that are waiting for outside for the next event, which is a round table on multi-dimensional poverty. So I also feel very uncomfortable that we don't have a space for Q&A or interaction or contribution. Apologies for that. This is probably maybe for the ministry not to assign me next time as moderator, maybe someone else will do much better. So apologies that there is no that space, but I think we're still around and we can interact during breaks, dinner and tomorrow. So let me thank all the panelists, and I will ask you to join me in thanking them by all the richness of the engagement and contribution that we made. So on my personal behalf, but also on behalf of all participants, my high appreciation. And I think we had, as I promised, at least one of the most interesting sessions, I would say. So thank you for all your great contribution and thanks to the participants for their attention and interest as well.
Con studio sistem King sistem morale. Bahadır gibi